I was able to stack up 56,397 for damage shredders on Salamantis. I'm going to give you the overall rotation that I use, but keep in mind that you may need to adjust this strategy as you go based on how players are playing in your game. For your equipment, make sure you bring a hole cracker. I do recommend leveling it up to at least level 3 or level 4. It helps with managing the shredders that you're going to run into. Bring at least 7 stacks of 24 rounds, if not a little bit more. And then a secondary that you like to use for the smaller enemies you're going to run into, like pops, fireballs, and ticks. They will be everywhere in this round, so just make sure you come prepared for that. Light shield is great for this, so you can get around the map more quickly, but just make sure you bring a secondary just in case yours breaks. Make sure you pack enough healing items to deal with shredders and the smaller enemies you run into. And then all your other empty space, I highly recommend bringing adrenaline shots. Bring at least 7 stacks of adrenaline shots, and if you can afford to bring more, go ahead and do that. You will definitely use them throughout this rotation. You don't necessarily need a snap hook or zip lines, but it does help to have them. Once you spawn in, you want to head to one of the many major areas that you can find shredders. Shredders spawn almost everywhere on this map, but you can find them in the higher volumes in the robotic sandboxes, cultural archives, medical, lobby, atrium, and metro. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through one of my full rotations so you can see how it went for me, and then you can adjust based on where you spawn in during your round. Since I spawned near the robotic sandbox, that's where I went first. You will find a couple of shredders in the robotic sandbox A, as well as a bunch of pops and fireballs. That entire room will aggro to you once you start the fight, so just be ready for it. I recommend taking out the shredders as quickly as possible with the hole cracker and then using your secondary to clean up any enemies that follow. From robotic sandbox A, you want to rotate into robotic sandbox B using the hallway that connects the two. That would go to loading bay if you wanted to bail out of this rotation. There are 2 shredders that can be over here in robotic sandbox B. The first is in the actual sandbox itself, and the second one is up top near the control room. You can hear the one that would be up top near the control room as you're running through that hallway, so if you hear it, just make sure you go up and grab it. But if you don't hear it, don't spend the time going up. It's not worth the effort to take a look because you didn't hear it. It won't be there. You don't need to worry about cleaning up enemies out of the robotic sandbox. You can just head into the seed vault hallway, which leads you to the cultural archives. Within the seed vault hallway, you can find a shredder during the later parts of the game. You won't find it early on. It only shows up about 20 minutes remaining and below then. Running through this hallway, you head to the cultural archives, and the cultural archives can have 3 shredders and a whole lot of enemies. Make sure that you come prepared. Make sure your weapons are reloaded. Make sure you have full health, full shields, and be ready for a fight. The shredders will be placed in 3 different locations within the cultural archives. The first will be to the left of the jump up from the seed vault hallway, and then the others will be down to the right hand side, which will lead you to a zip line that takes you up to Business Center. Pay attention to the ticks in this area. Ticks are everywhere and they will jump on you at the worst possible moments, and a shredder can come up and just deal tons of damage to you, almost knocking you out. Definitely take the time with your secondary to take out every enemy as you go. You don't want to get caught out by anything within this room. It's very easy for the enemies to do collaborative type damage and just deal massive instant damage to you if you're not careful. Once you've eliminated everything in the room, you can use the zip line to go up to Business Center, or just use a snap hook, which will get you up a little bit faster. Business Center can have a bunch of pops, ticks, and fireballs, and it can also have 1 shredder. The shredder will roam towards the auditorium and the reception area of this space, so just keep an eye out and an ear out for that. From the Business Center, you can rotate into the lobby or to the atrium. For this rotation, I wanted to rotate to the lobby and take a look to see if shredders had spawned, and then poked my head over into the atrium. So since there were no shredders that spawned in the lobby, I headed over to atrium to take a look. Again, because shredders are so loud, you really don't need to go too far into a room to know if they're there. Listen to see if you hear them, and if you don't, then just bail out. Don't take the time to search every corner, because if they're not audible, they're not there. Now from the lobby, I normally go to Central Corridor, but I try and wait for somebody else to put the fuel cell in the door. So for this specific rotation, I decided to drop down into Metro. Failed a little bit with my snap hook and took a bunch of damage, but you can be a lot more smooth with that using the snap hook if you just latch it on before you jump off. From here, you can rotate back into the robotic sandbox, and this is actually a little bit too soon to rotate back in. There wasn't a likelihood that enemies would spawn in, but I decided that I wanted to go out to the loading bay and check for the shredder that can be out there protecting one of the extracts. You got to be careful when you come out into loading bay though, because there is a bastion that will roam, and bastion can kind of block you from being able to accomplish what you want to do. So that's what ended up happening here. Is I was going to go take a look at the extraction, but the bastion was there just totally guarding it and making it not a very good idea for me to try. So I decided to just bail out. From here, I decided to go up the zip line, which would take me towards medical. Medical can be really great if you're able to get all the shredders that spawn in there. You can get up to 4 total in medical if it goes your way. So I got here just a little bit too late. There was already somebody farming the shredders, but there was still one roaming around that I was able to kind of pick off and steal from that player. And there's another shredder that roams outside of medical, and this one was actually up, so I was able to grab that one too. Be careful when you are using the hole cracker. If you don't hit their thrusters, it's not a 2-shot, it can be a 3-shot. So if you're sitting there without any sort of protection, that's not a great place to be. Always make sure that you have cover and don't try and ego the shots on the shredder. Once you're done with medical, you can run through the central corridor and then back down into the robotic sandbox. Now being back in the robotic sandbox, it's essentially one full rotation and I restart the process from here. Beyond that, once you are getting down towards the last bit of the round, pay attention to where the extraction is and make sure your rotation is headed that way so that you can get out before the timer hits 0. Once you've stacked up enough shredders and you're happy with your score, head back to Speranza, collect your loot if you haven't already, and watch your score fly up the leaderboard. That's going to be it for me today, y'all. Thanks for watching.